When WoW first released in 2004, the fundamental design philosophy Blizzard approached the game with was just completely different from how it is now or in any other expansion since. The only way I can put it is there was less foresight for how things may really play out in practice, less worrying about creating difficult situations, and far more emphasis on developers just going ahead and putting something in the game which they think sounds cool. That's why we ended up with world buffs. Hey, you defeated a dragon raid boss? That is pretty cool. On top of an item reward, let's give you a temporary buff. In fact, you know what? Why just buff you? Defeating a Nixia or Nefarian should be a celebration for everyone, so let's give everyone in the city a buff instead. Did they imagine all this time later people would go around stacking up all these various buffs, logging out to retain their duration and then melting bosses in seconds with them? No, they didn't, but players did. And for many, that's one of the things that makes Classic WoW what it is. This whole just put stuff in the game that's cool or thematic, or probably not terribly well balanced, was something that spanned the whole spectrum of Vanilla's gameplay. And recently I've been getting into playing hardcore WoW again and doing vanilla leveling. And one of the things that I've really actively started to look out for is what each mob actually does. A lot of them just run at you in a straight line and start meleeing, but many of them have some kind of buff they use or debuff. And you don't see anything even remotely similar to how punishing debuffs are in Classic WoW during leveling. So today I thought I'd try and dig up some of the more dangerous and obscure ones and talk about what makes them so bad, and in some cases what you can do against them. I guess general word of caution here for your hardcore characters too: gotta watch out for those mobs which can root you for 30 seconds or stun you for over 10. Both of which do exist in the game. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is a leading online way for time-conscious individuals to learn math and computer science skills interactively in their own time. Brilliant has a wide choice of lessons from foundational and advanced math to AI, data science, programming, and many more. Brilliant handles complex concepts that are broken down into 15-minute lessons. So whether you're an amateur or a professional, Brilliant's hands-on intuitive lessons will mean you can build skills in a low-pressure, hands-on environment. Also, new content is added each month, so you'll have new broadening horizons to return to. For example, a computer science course would really help with understanding what goes on in the background for many apps that we take for granted, or maybe to serve as a jump for getting you started on making something of your own perhaps. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/WillE or click on the link in the description. The first 200 people will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription as well. Many thanks to Brilliant for the sponsor today. Let's get back to WoW. So why not start off with a category of debuffs which are consistently found throughout Classic: diseases. Often being applied by the undead, there are plenty of diseases which can last a punishing 30 minutes whilst also totally destroying your stats. In terms of dealing with this category of debuffs, priests, paladins, and shamans are able to dispel them. There are certain potions craftable through alchemy which can do so too, such as a purification potion. Other than that, for most classes, it's just something that you've got to deal with. Some of the worst diseases in the game are applied in Strat Undead. Kind of fits with the whole theme of the instance really. In fact, if you're going in here, having a disease dispel is kind of a big deal. The appropriately named plague ghouls apply, wouldn't you have guessed, Ghoul Plague, reducing both magical and physical damage dealt by 25, as well as a super annoying 20% reduction in move speed for an entire 30 minutes. Another nasty debuff present in the open world is Ghoul Rot. This one can come from a number of different mobs, both found in Eastern Plaguelands as well as Razor Fen Downs. Ghoul Rot straight up reduces your chance to hit by 10% for 10 minutes. This is particularly annoying playing a melee class such as a warrior or a rogue, where it already feels like you're missing a lot of hit chance. But those first two debuffs are kind of just annoying. This next one is super dangerous if you don't understand what it does. Putrid Bile is applied by gargoyles that roam the Eastern Plaguelands. I don't even believe they are part of any quests at all, they're just thrown in there to catch you off guard. So reading the debuff, it says stops regeneration, so you might just think, well, regeneration, that's passive health gain, that's not a big deal. Well, actually no, stop regeneration means you can't gain health in any way at all. No healing spells, health potions, bandages, eating, nothing for 45 seconds. At least it's a shorter duration debuff than the ones we've gone over so far, but when in the plague lands, avoid these gargoyles, well, like the plague. But arguably the worst disease debuff in the game is found in Southern Ungoro Crater and can be applied by any of the Garishi Silithid. This debuff increases physical damage taken by an insane 40% or more for an entire 30 minutes. I really don't know what Blizzard were thinking when they came up with this one. Fortunately, there is counterplay even for a melee. This ability has a 2-second cast and only a 5-yard range, so if you see any of them casting, you need to land a CC or dip out of range really fast and you should be okay. Also, I think this debuff is coded kinda weird. If you look at the tooltip on Wowhead, it says only a 10% damage increase debuff, but I've seen it do all kinds of different damage, from 41 or so to 47% at the high end. It seems as though for some reason the power of it actually scales up with your character's level. Either way, try and avoid this one when questing an Ungoro, or endure 30 minutes of pretty much every single attack, feeling as though it's a crushing blow. Next are a few mobs with CC so long you're just left sitting there and contemplating who at Blizzard decided players needed to suffer so much. Such as the number of spiders having access to paralytic poison. This instant cast ability lands a nasty 8-second stun on your character. The Carrion Recluse around Raven Hill in Duskwood have access to this. I nearly had a hardcore character die when pulling one by accident alongside some undead. You just don't really expect an 8-second stun to come out of nowhere, do you? Many basilisks also have a stun too. It's kind of the special move that you can more or less always expect them to do. Crystal Flash is one of the harshest ones, applying a heavy 15-second stun. Though I will say, even though the tooltip doesn't make it obvious, if you take damage after being hit, that it should break. Also, it works in a similar way that Silithid Pox does, so if you see them casting, take a few steps back and dodge it, move back in. There are a number of rare mobs out in the world too that possess totally unique abilities you don't find anywhere else in the game. This can make taking on rares, who are already typically 2 levels higher than other mobs in the area, that bit more dangerous. Now, some range from being fairly harmless, such as Lord Malathrom in Duskwood. He summons 2 adds that can half your move speed and attack speed, but they only have 1 health each. Or Commander Felstrom, who casts an ability to resurrect himself at full health whenever he hits about 20%. Some other rares though should not be underestimated. Ekalom is a rare water elemental found in Southern Ashenvale. They have a lot of your standard water elemental type stuff such as Frost Shock, but they also have a 3.5 second caster just called Freeze. If this lands, you're going to get hit by a damage over time effect as well as a 15-second stun, almost guaranteeing a visit to the graveyard if you don't have a way to break it. So if by chance you see this mob out in the world and you don't have some CC ready, well, get prepared to find some line of sight somewhere. Another rare mob which can easily catch you off guard is Naraxis in Duskwood. This spider's found in a secluded cave on the eastern side of the zone, which has an instant cast 30-second route. Now, to be fair, this is nowhere near as bad as a stun, and almost every class has tools to at least delay a fight for a long time. But the fact someone at Blizzard just straight up threw a 30-second route on this mob is, well, it's classic for you, isn't it? Some dev out there thought, yeah, rare spider, let's just boost their ability up to 10. So now we've covered some diseases and some long duration debuffs that can catch you off guard. Some other debuffs though aren't quite this sinister. Some of them are just really annoying. And when I think annoying plus debuff, there is truly only one which stands above all others. I'm going to give you a clue. Quest in Lower Blackrock Spire involving a spider. I'm sure if you've ever actually gone to the trouble of completing this quest, you already know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, well, you aren't really missing out on much, to be fair. So during the Mother Smolderweb fight, you get affected by Mother's Milk. This frequently triggers a 10-second undispellable route on all allies in 30 yards, with no diminishing return and no internal cooldown. There is a quest where a dwarf in Northern Burning Steppes wants you to run from Lower Blackrock Spire with this debuff all the way back to him so he can, milk you. Hey, it's their quest wording, not me, okay? Most people use the immature venom sacs the nearby spiders drop to just get rid of this debuff and be about their day. I don't think I've ever had a group in LBRS with the patience to run this debuff all the way back for the quest. Maybe this is one that if you want to do, you go for it solo at some point. Next is a very unique debuff that just one set of satyrs in the entire game have access to. The Bleak Heart satyr in Eastern Ashenvale can often hit you with Curse of the Bleak Heart, and reading the tool tooltip, it kind of just, well, doesn't tell you anything about what it actually does, but believe me, you're going to be finding out how annoying this debuff can be sooner rather than later. Whilst affected, every second you have a 5% chance to be hit by chest pains. This 5-second stun forces your character to kneel down in pain twice in a row and suffer minor shadow damage. The fun part about this debuff is it has no diminishing return, no internal cooldown, and can proc while you're already affected by it. Technically speaking, it could stun you for the entire 3 minute of the curse's duration, at which point, I don't know, go buy a lottery ticket or something because those odds are crazy. Either way, it's not too rare to be hit back to back by this debuff, leading to a hefty 10-second plus stun and some damage. Don't take on too many mobs when this is running, or maybe you just get super unlucky and die. Honourable mentions now, since I've got to include these two on the list somewhere. There's certain oozes out in the world which, when they get to low health, begin casting Clone. This does exactly what you expect it to do. The one I remember doing this the most are the primal oozes over in Ungoro. Definitely interrupt this one. But the most annoying mobs to deal with without an interrupt have to be the Curzon Medicine Men. At some point you get to those quests in Northeastern Stranglethorn Vale and have to deal with these guys, who have a full-on good priest toolkit. They use Inner Fire, Renew, and Heal. The former two spells are already annoying enough to get through, but when you get their health to about 30% or low and they begin casting a heal, if they finish that cast, they are going straight back to 100% health again. They aren't the most dangerous mobs out there, as they're just bashing you with a staff, but for many classes it's like defeating two mobs at once, so they have so much health. Now I want to cover some abilities which you just kind of wouldn't know how they work until you see them firsthand. What I mean by this is, if a mob casts Entangling Roots, you know you're about to get rooted. If a mob casts Fireball, you're gonna get hit by a ball of fire. Some abilities clearly telegraph what's about to happen. The ones I'm going to talk about here do not. Or some of them do to an extent, but can still be a nasty surprise. One of the final quests you might go for in Red Ridge Mountain has you battle to the top of a tower to take on the powerful sorcerer Morganth. It's already a tough battle to reach the top, having to go through loads of Shadowhide gnolls and demonic dogs. Morganth himself also has an active demon and 2 nearby gnolls. But the real catch here is when you get him to about half health, is that he summons a minion of Morganth, which is a non-elite level 30 patchwork golem. This summon has way too high of a level and far too much health for you to reasonably be able to take down at the level you're expected to do this quest. Even if you have a decently sized party, it's a difficult fight. You just want to try and burn down the boss as soon as possible and then run down the tower and reset. If the gnolls below haven't already started respawning, that is. Spoiler, they probably will have. This fight can be a real death trap for unprepared groups, so CC him during the cast or just nuke him down. Next is an ability that's particularly deadly for melee attackers, whilst kind of just being a free ticket for ranged DPS. And it's only found on 2 mobs in the entire game, the Dalaran Shield Guards and the Curzon Subchief. It's called Violent Shield. It roots the mob in place and grants them bonus armor, but also reflects 85 damage back to melee attackers. So if you're on any class that attacks fast, you can absolutely delete your own health bar on these guys if you aren't paying attention. I remember leveling a rogue in Classic and wondering where my health was going before I actually stopped to read what this ability does. Basically, when they go red and stop moving, it's time for you to stop attacking. Jadefire Satyrs in Felwood do something quite similar. It's just called Jadefire. This time only reflects 50 damage instead, but as a trade-off they can continue attacking for the duration. Either way, it's a nasty debuff and can really eat into your health on a melee class. Next is an ability very few mobs in the entire game have, called Putrid Stench. You'll most likely run into this when doing the Cauldron quests in Western Plaguelands. It's an instant cast 10-second silence, which also reduces your stats by a good amount as well. It can definitely chain together with there being other invisible mobs in the area to make a difficult scenario. One of the mobs I always think to be careful against are deep into Gnomeregan. You know that final hallway leading up to Mechanir Thermoplug? I mean, the Dark Irons are already bad enough with their landmine spam, but the real dangers here can be the Arcane Nullifiers. They have 2 abilities. First of all, they can cleanse any debuff from themselves and nearby targets every few seconds, meaning tactics involving CC can easily fail, as well as do an AoE spell reflection on all nearby allies for 5 seconds, meaning if the mage or warlock isn't quite paying attention, they can very quickly get their own frost bolts or shadow bolts straight back to their own face. Speaking of buffs and of dungeons, one of the most dangerous boss fights has to be right fight at the end of Blackrot Depths. It's already a very hard-fought journey to get to the throne room, where the final boss, Emperor Dagran Thorison, awaits you. This fight has a number of things that can cause problems. The nearby princess will attempt to heal him if you're choosing to save her, and Thorison himself is wielding Iron Foe, meaning sometimes he's just gonna proc extra attacks and remove half your tank's health in one global. But the scary bit is when he uses his ability, Avatar of Flame, making him totally immune to magic for 10 seconds and gaining even more damage on his extra attacks. It can be pretty stressful watching this fight as a caster, hoping the tank doesn't get randomly globaled and waiting for Avatar of Flame to wear off, but the rewards at the end of the dungeon are definitely well worth it. Finally, 2 for fun abilities you might not have known about. Did you know there's a debuff in Classic WoW that lasts for 7 days? As part of the rogue quest to learn how to craft poisons, you will get affected by the Touch of Zanzil. This reduces your agility by a hefty 15, as well as reducing your stealth level by -50, which is pretty much the same as saying your stealth doesn't work anymore. You're basically just RP walking in stealth for fun, without the whole being undetectable part. You can remove this debuff as part of a follow-up quest, using a first aid anti-venom, or just have a druid, paladin, or anyone else that can remove poisons get rid of it for you. Last but not least, as part of the Scourge Invasion event in Classic, additional bosses spawn in certain lower level dungeons. In Scarlet Monastery Graveyard, there is a brand new boss called Scorn. He has an ability that deals damage to you and knocks you back. Do you know what someone at Blizzard decided to call this? Lich Slap. You know someone had fun when they came up with this, and probably that they only got it put in the game as this boss was going to be a limited duration one. I think it goes to show, as mentioned at the start, the vanilla devs were really just out there putting unique stuff in the game which they thought sounded cool or made sense thematically, or was just plain fun. And it is something, especially during the leveling portion of the game, that was moved away from in later expansions. And it's one of the things that, for me at least, makes vanilla leveling that bit more memorable and replayable. Are there any other buffs or debuffs which particularly stand out to you in the game? Drop them down below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.